Hello and welcome back to Christianity Calling. So in today's video, I have 5 points, not the usual 3, but we will hope that we can get through these 5 points relatively quickly and with some rhythm. So with that being said, first of all, before I share with you the title of the video, we have to do the famed, well, maybe not so much famed, but the road to 1K. And essentially, if you don't know what we're doing, we are adding a star to the board for every new subscriber to the channel, all the way to our goal of 1,000 subscribers. So if you haven't already subscribed, please feel free to do so. And next time you will get your star on the board. Since our previous video, I have had 2 new subscribers. So I have added 2 extra stars to the board. We are now up to 17 stars on the board, and long may the growth continue. So yeah, as I say, if you would like to subscribe and help us toward that goal, then please feel free to do so. Also, if you haven't already, please do check down below in the description. I have recently added some extra links down there, some of my personal links, but also some Bible study links and charity links and things like that. So yeah, please feel free if you would like to check out some of the things in the description. With that being said, let's get on with today's video and I will share with you the title. So this one is going to be 5 Habits of Strong Christians. And I think this one's really good because it provides kind of some insight into some attitudes and structures you can have that will actually make you stronger in your Christian life. So it does have strong practical application. So that being said, let's get on with the first habit that strong Christians implement and have within them. And that is having discipline and keeping responsibilities. So this is a sort of joint one. I've decided to put these together because they are very similar. I mean, if you keep responsibilities, then you are kind of having discipline. So obviously discipline is something that we build. It's not something that we go into and that we have straight away. For example, if we desire to get up at a certain time every day, let's say 6:30 or 7 a.m. or something like that, we might struggle for the first few weeks. We might get up a little bit later at times, but then we get into a natural rhythm, a natural habit, a natural way of life, and that can be beneficial for us. Obviously, not just getting up early can be beneficial. We have to do the right things after we've got up that are good things, that are positive things. Maybe we do a prayer, maybe we start some work or whatever it might be in our lives. But having discipline is a very, very strong habit. Now, the way this can come into Christian life, of course, is as things I've mentioned, like our prayer life, having discipline with our prayer life, maybe having discipline or keeping responsibilities in the way of doing things for our family. It honestly, it could be anything. It could be doing something with them on a particular day that is beneficial for them. You could have particular examples of this, like for children helping their grandparents or stuff. So doing something, if you're a teenager or young adult, doing something for your grandparents on a particular day, keeping that responsibility, having discipline there, and showing respect and honor to your grandparents or your parents or whoever it is in that particular way. But yeah, just doing those sort of things, having discipline with your faith. Also, even things like keeping the responsibility of going to church and also helping at church where you can and keeping those responsibilities. This like kind of orderliness creates, I don't know how to describe it, but it creates a sort of it's not a stronger faith necessarily, although obviously having discipline and doing these things can result in a sense of having a stronger faith through your regular prayer, through your regular going to church and stuff. But it's just a sense of doing the things that are necessary and keeping to that. And there's a kind of sense of rightness in that. There's an orderedness to that, and there's all these sorts of things that are very, very good, that are very, very beneficial for you. Whereas if you don't do those things, there's a kind of chaos there. There's a kind of things aren't quite right. Things aren't quite balanced. Things aren't quite in harmony, aren't ordered, and all that sort of stuff. So having discipline can be a very beneficial one. Number two, kind of that relates to this somewhat, although I would say that most of these things relate to one another, is having a strong prayer and study life. So particularly as a Christian, dedicating ourselves and disciplining ourselves in the way of daily prayer, and if you can, daily Bible study and things like that. Although I know sometimes on some days doing a bit of Bible study can be difficult. But certainly disciplining yourself in that and gaining a strong relationship to prayer and Bible study. Obviously, this is going to increase your connection to God. It's going to help you feel closer to God. You're going to be immersed in the Word of God much more frequently, and hopefully with a strong level of vigor as well. And this is, you can just see how this is beneficial essentially for Christian life. Without that connection to regular prayer and regular Bible study and being immersed in the Word or anything Christian really, then that connection to God, to Jesus, is going to be wane a little bit, and then what might happen is that connection to upholding Christian morality and stuff might get a little bit weaker and stuff. So this is a definite strong habit of committed Christians that, doing this, keeping strong in prayer and Bible study is going to be extremely beneficial. So since that one's relatively straightforward, I won't talk any more on that. But instead, we will go to number 3, which is going to be having boldness. So having boldness in your Christian faith, being expressive in that, talking about that as well, not necessarily just sort of, keeping it to yourself all the time and just having, personal Bible study and personal prayer and not really talking about it to others, not really having a sense of community or anything like that. So, having a level of boldness in your Christian faith and making sure that, certainly when people are asking about it or asking about your faith, you're proclaiming who you are in your faith, what faith you are, and why it is you are that faith and why you have that conviction and stuff like that. Certainly, that sense of boldness is key. Now, you can also take that into evangelizing and things like that. That would be an enhanced level of boldness again, and that could be very positive. So, it just depends on whether you're going to get into the evangelizing scene or anything like that. But certainly, for the average Christian, just having that sense of boldness in your faith on a day-to-day basis, and when you're talking about it with others, when that does come up, not shying away and just really stating your bold faith in Jesus, in the Bible, and in these things, and maybe sharing your kind of road to faith if that naturally comes up in conversation. So yeah, definitely boldness is another habit of a strong Christian. Number 4, I suppose it's similar to boldness as well, but having a strong trust in God. Obviously, this is a little bit different as well because it comes into trusting God when we're in difficult situations, when even we can't really feel that connection with God. It's having that trust there, it's keeping in that trust, it's remaining in a strong connection to prayer and Bible study, a strong connection to our Christian community, continually going to church and all that sort of stuff through that kind of feeling of uncertainty and still remaining in a trust in God, a trust that things will come from perhaps the outside, from the outer world, to maybe help us understand certain things or help move us along in our faith and in those types of things. So just always having and always putting trust in God, even when we can't, essentially. Now that is a real strong habit of a good Christian, being able to do that even when God doesn't feel fully present for us, continuing on in our faith. And then something will change, something will come up. You might even get a sign from God in some way that then sort of allows you to have even that greater, more obvious level of connection and trust in God. But yeah, just remaining strong in that trust. And then number 5 is remaining, and this is so important as well, because all of these other sorts of things are quite, objective and quite focused on different things that we do and stuff. But number 5 is really important, perhaps one of the most important actually, and that is remaining joyful and positive. And when you really meet Christians who are deep in the faith and they really do love their faith and they have a strong connection to it, you will most likely find that they have a lot of joy, that they're positive, that they do have a sense of peace within them as well. And yeah, okay, at certain times they might get a bit sad or deflated or whatever, but you'll notice that actually generally throughout their days, they're relatively positive, they have a good level of joy, they have an underlying peace that's there. And this is huge, keeping that access to that is huge. Not only is it beneficial for yourself, like for your own emotional state, but it kind of, it sustains that closeness with God, and it shows to others, maybe even others who aren't Christian, that actually, Christianity and having a connection to Christ gives us these things and implants these things in us. And that's actually really intriguing, really kind of interesting for that person who isn't a non-Christian. They might think, well, yeah, there's something to this life. And actually, just in us as Christians remaining joyful, positive, peaceful, that might actually bring people closer to Christ and closer to Christianity. Just in that one thing, not even saying anything, but just living that way, living joyfully, positively, etc. That might be an indicator to certain people, to non-Christians, that there really is something in this way of life. Because it's often been talked about as well that Christianity is, of course it's a religion, obviously, but also it's a very, very strong way of life. And I think that's true of Christianity, maybe in some sense, or in some certain ways, more than other religions, because there is a real strong dedication to following Christ and, crucifying the flesh and self-sacrifice and living in the joy of the Spirit and all these sorts of things. And this is a very strong way of life, and that sense of self-control and discipline. This is a way of life in the very, very fine micro behaviors, or the very, very fine behaviors that we have in single moments. It calls us to be joyful, to be positive, to have self-discipline every moment. And there is nothing more of a way of life than that, because that is in your very fundamental moments of life, every single moment. Other religions have those things, of course, and they have ways of life in a similar way of Christianity, with the the worship and the rituals and things like that. But particularly Christianity is this every moment thing that we're considering ourselves, our joy, our discipline, our behavior, everything, essentially to glorify God and to glorify Christ as well. And so it is a huge thing, that. But with that being said, that is my 5 habits of strong Christians. Obviously, there are more habits than that, but I've just done it as a nice 5 there. If you want to get involved in the comments, if you have any other habits you would like to add, then please put those down below. And with that being said, I will leave it there for this video, and I will see you in the next one. So see you very soon, guys.